Hello, good morning or good evening whenever you are watching this. I hope you are doing well. My name is Catherine and today we are talking about some of my recent reads. The last time I did a recent reads video was, I think, February or March of this year. It's been a while. And I have definitely read quite a few books since then. I'm not going to go through every single book that I've read since then because that would be a little bit crazy, but I am going to talk about the books that I have read since moving to New York. I moved to New York in July. During like July and August, my reading definitely slowed down because I was just so busy, but I have read quite a few books since then. In fact, I've read 50 books since then. So these are all the books that I have read between July and November. All of these are going to be basic one sentence kind of reviews. If there are any books in here that you want me to go more in depth into, I am happy to do so. Just drop a comment down below. Before going into the books themselves, let's just take a look at the formats and genres that I read in. So firstly, format-wise, I read 31 audiobooks, 18 ebooks, and 4 physical books. Genre-wise, some of these are a little bit overlapped and a little bit like between genres, so I put them in the best one that I could think of. I read 19 contemporary, 5 fantasy romance, 6 historical romance, 5 monster romances, 4 dark romances, 6 just kind of straight up fantasy, 2 YA fantasy, 2 YA contemporary, 2 mythology retellings, 1 lit fic, 1 memoir, and 1 graphic novel. Okay, with that, let's get into this. I do have this separated in genre order, so if there's a specific genre you want to look at, go ahead and take a look at the cards down below. Starting off with my contemporary books. I read 2 books by Evie Mitchell. First being Not My Type, which is about a woman who has a sex positive podcast, specifically talking about sex positivity with people with disabilities. She is in a wheelchair, and the romantic interest is teaching shibari. I really enjoyed this. I feel like it was actually pretty educational in certain ways, especially in terms of what is shibari, all of that. Also, the romance, so fun, so cute, so spicy. Same goes for Love Flushed. All of Evie Mitchell's books have characters with disabilities or chronic illnesses are just so good. I love her writing. I listened to these on audiobook and I finished them within a day. I just listened to them straight through. And again, I just really love the relationship in this one. Our main character in this one deals with Crohn's disease. Business or Pleasure by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I love the trope of lessons in seduction. And this one was particularly good because it is the woman teaching the man, which I feel like we don't often see, especially since I feel like Lessons in Seduction is very much a historical romance thing. I digress. I loved the characters' relationships, and it very much had the will they, won't they type deal, as you see in a lot with friends with benefits situations. Stormy with J.L. Seeger is an emotional one. It involves a woman who had lost her husband several years ago and is now trying to get back into the dating game. She ends up falling for her late husband's best friend, who she's never gotten along with, and she doesn't really know why, but they just don't vibe, and you soon find out why. It's so good and made me cry, and I loved both of them kind of dealing with their grief in different ways, because she lost her husband, he lost his best friend, and finding that comfort and solace in each other. Also by J.L. Seeger, I read part 1 and 2 of Revive Me. This one is a little bit more complicated, and it actually is a trilogy, and it's a true trilogy where you read them in order. I do think that it was stretched out a little bit more than it had to be. I still haven't read part 3, which I am going to because I did genuinely love the books. We first see the characters in college, and then a little bit later in life, and then later again. It has the second chance third chance type romance. I'm mostly just waiting for the third book to come out on audiobook just because I really like the audiobook narrators. I then read the 3 novellas that were part of Denise Williams' Love and Other Flight Delays, I think is what it's called, series, where it's all books that take place kind of surrounding an airport type situation. We have The Sweetest Connection, The Love Connection, and The Misconnection. All 3 of them I really enjoyed. I did kind of want to see the 3 stories like interact just a little bit more. Honestly, I felt like they could have interwoven and it could have been really cool. But I did overall enjoy all 3 of them. You have a friends to lovers and enemies to lovers, and the third one, strangers to lovers. Just a more traditional type romance. I guess a long distance lovers. Very, very fun ones. They were all very sweet. But again, I something about it, I just wanted them to be a little bit more interconnected. Because clearly I was in the novella mood, I read Snow Place Like LA by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone. This one takes place in the same universe as the Merry Little Meet Cute book. Loved that one. This one was also very fun, very steamy. It did unfortunately rely on a lot of miscommunication, which, as I've said before, I don't hate miscommunication. There was just a lot of it in this one, considering it was, you know, a novella. Still fun though. Then I did read the 3 books in the Grip series by Kennedy Ryan, Grip and Still. So this is another series that is a true like trilogy. All 3 books are about the same couple. What I did appreciate about the end of Grip is we don't see the couple like apart. They have their happily ever after, so you could technically end it with that, but then Still is kind of them living in their relationship, which was really fun and not something that I feel like we normally get to see in a lot of romances. It's they get there, you know, they're together and then that's it. That's the end. Obviously there is a lot more in romances and relationships, and that's what this shows. I was so silly. I thought, because I got to the end of Grip without crying, which is a huge feat in a Kennedy Ryan book for me. And I was like, oh my God, am I making it through a Kennedy Ryan book without crying? And then I read Still. I was sobbing during that one. It was so emotional. Oh my God. Beautiful, beautifully written. You can see also how like some things from like this, which is an earlier book, kind of lends itself to some of her later books, specifically like Before I Let Go. It's so good. It's about a rapper and his journey. I mean, female character, she is his like college best friend's sister, who also then becomes like his manager, agent, something like that. And their relationship together is so beautiful, especially as they deal with being like a mixed race couple and kind of everything that goes into that. I loved this book. And I read Honey and Spice by Baloo Babaloa. This one was really fun. It was a college romance, which I don't really read a lot of college romances. And it had that like perfect sort of rivals to lovers, hate to love type vibe. Banter between the characters was so good. I definitely want to read a lot more by this author. I haven't read anything else by her, so I'm definitely going to pick some up. Iris Kelly Doesn't Date by Ashley Herring Blake is the 3rd and final book in the like Bright Falls series, the Delilah Green Doesn't Care, that whole trilogy. This one is for the theater kids with anxiety, the theater kids who just moved to Brooklyn, New York. Yeah, it was just a little relatable. I really enjoyed the relationship, but also each individual character's journey. They both went through so much growth, and I just fell in love with the 2 of them. The Fiance Farce by Alexandria Belfler. You know, I too work in an independent bookstore and would love to fall in love with one of the cover models of my favorite book. I just think that'd be really cool, you know? It's a fake dating, opposites attract. You can't go wrong with that. When Harry Met Harry, unfortunately, is one that did actually disappoint me. This is by Sydney Smythe. It was fine. I just felt like our characters spent so much time like arguing and never actually like, I don't know, like the ending just was so much. I felt like the ending was really rushed, and I felt like it didn't have enough time for them to like develop as a couple. I wanted more, so unfortunately that one was kind of disappointing. On the When Harry Met Sally trend though, I read You Again, and I loved that one. The two characters were so messy and their relationship was so interesting, and it's an enemies to friends to lovers type relationship. You can just feel the chemistry between the two of them, and even though they have like a lot to work on personally, it's like acknowledged. And also I love the fact that they're like, you don't need to be perfect to be, you know, loved. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I really love that one. Finally, Faking with Benefits by Lily Gold. This is the second Lily Gold that I've read. Her books are wild. It's a Why Choose romance, so like you can expect them to be a little bit crazy. I found in the like 2 Lily Gold books that I've read of these like Why Choose, and a lot of the times in the Why Choose romances, each of the guys is just very like, are their stereotypes. We have the grumpy one, we have the golden retriever, you have the like smart kind of emotionally intelligent one. So they all kind of have their thing, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, and I did really enjoy it. But going into it, you're like, okay, they are kind of who they are. There's not much else. Still a lot of fun though. Going into the historical romances, starting out with Knockout by Sarah MacLean. I just don't know if I'll ever be truly disappointed by a Sarah MacLean book. I loved this so much. I loved the relationship. I loved the banter. I loved the grumpy sunshine dynamic. I love the characters. Our main character, Imogen, reminds me so much of like a Nina Zenik type character that like I can't help but love her, because she's the exact type of female main character that I love. And we were left with quite a cliffhanger for the final book in this series, in the Hell's Bells series that The Island Princess Starts a Scandal by Adriana Herrera. This is book 2 in this series. Our main character wants to experience all the pleasures of Paris before she is forced to return home and marry a man, which she does not really want to do. And the relationships that they have are just so like beautifully crafted and complex. It was hard not to just be totally swooning during this one. I then read a couple Sophie Jordan books, first being The Duke Goes Down, then The Right Gets Ravished, and The Scoundrel Falls Hard. I'm reviewing the 3 of them together because they're very similar in vibe. They are kind of your like basic historical romances. I did love The Scoundrel Falls Hard. It involves a female blacksmith and a marriage of convenience situationship, and I loved their relationship. The other 2 were also enjoyable. I just thought they were pretty basic in terms of historical romances. Nothing really about them like stood out to me, but they were still enjoyable. Finally was Anna Maria and the Fox by Liana de la Rosa. This is another one where I just loved the tension. I also really appreciated that both of these characters are trying to like navigate London society while very much still feeling like outsiders, even though they rightfully should have a place there. Our main character is an heiress from Mexico, and our main male character, our love interest, he is mixed race. And so it's a lot of them trying to find their footing in this world that rightfully they should belong in, especially in like the upper class society. And then with that, them finding the balance with each other. I thought that was all just so interestingly crafted. And of course, their chemistry was so good. Moving on to fantasy romances. Some of these are more fantasy, some of these are more romance. Starting off with, I did read Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This book is so popular. I'd be shocked if any corner of the internet hasn't heard about it. It is about Violet, who's training to be a dragon rider, and there is so much going on. I overall enjoyed the book. Like, I'd read it basically in like 2 sittings, and I had so much fun with it. It is like very much an intro to fantasy romance, so if you're someone who is a seasoned like fantasy romance reader, especially high fantasy, You'll probably find things a little bit basic, the world building not as well fleshed out. However, I had a great time, and I did find the like relationship and the tension between Violet and Xaden really interesting. And I am very much curious how the series is going to continue. King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair. I did start the second book and then promptly DNF'd it. I always have this problem with Scarlett St. Clair's books where I just don't believe the relationship at all. I want to, and I always find the stories really interesting, but the relationship just doesn't make any sense. And the two characters are constantly like at each other's throat, and not in like a good way, in a like, okay, why are we still continuing with this? This doesn't make sense. So yeah, I am not going to be continuing on with that series, unfortunately. In Charm's Way by Lana Harper. I loved the first book in this series, Payback's a Witch, and then slowly but surely I've just not been enjoying the rest of the series, which is really unfortunate because I like the idea of them. It takes place in this like small witchy town, and there's a lot of like lore surrounding the town, and it is interesting, but again, this is another one where I just like the characters' relationships I don't believe. Like, it just feels like the attraction comes out of nowhere, and I'm always like sitting there wondering like, why do you like each other? A Restless Truth by Freya Marsk, on the other hand, I loved. It's a mystery, it's on a boat, it has that like really interesting magic system and like magic world that our first book, A Marvelous Light, introduced us to. It has very like Agatha Christie type vibes. I really loved it. It was so good. I can't wait to read the next one. Finally is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I was lucky enough to get an ARC of this book. I am obsessed. I think this is Ali Hazelwood's best book yet. I cannot wait until it comes out because I will be selling it to anyone and everyone who will listen to me. It is very much a like intro to shifter romances for the contemporary girlies, and it has those like Omegaverse fanfiction vibes that I love so much. Our main male character is just so swoon worthy. I love the sass and the snark of our main female character. When this book comes out in February, y'all better run because it's so good. This is a great transition into the monster romances. You might be asking yourself, what's the difference between a shifter romance and a monster romance? Monsters mostly are just monsters the entire time. That's kind of the main difference, you know? So first I had two kind of unhinged ones that I had to read on Halloween. I read Plowed by the Pumpkin King by Juno Delight. It's terrible. It was so bad and so funny. Exactly what you would expect from a book with that title. Hollow by C.M. Nacosta is actually two books in one, which was kind of fun. It was so weird. You know what? I had a great time reading it. It does involve the Headless Horseman. That's all I'll say about it. I read two other books by C.M. Nacosta. I loved her writing this year. I want to read so much more from her. First being How to Marry a Marble Marquess. Obsessed with this book. It is so good. It's everything I love about historical romances, but also a monster romance. Like, it has lessons in seduction that I love to see. One of my favorite tropes. He is a gargoyle, which is always a ton of fun. He's the type of gargoyle where it's like he turns to stone during the day and then is able to move at night. And seeing the dynamic of a monster romance, but also in the context of like a very like traditional historical romance, was such a great time. And it felt like a traditional historical romance, but with just that little bit of spice to it. I then did read Run Rabbit Run, which technically is a shifter romance, if we want to get technical with things. It was good stuff, very fun. No complaints. I really enjoy C.M. Nacosta's writing style, and I definitely think I'm going to read a lot more of hers, which is good because she has so many books. Finally, I read The Stone and the Star by Gillian Graves. This is another gargoyle novella. I loved it. It was very good. It's like a artist and a gargoyle, which is like perfect combo. Even in the short time frame, I just feel like the relationship was very well developed and I enjoyed it very much. Moving on to ones that I would consider straight up fantasy. I started the Throne of Glass series. So far, as of right now, I've read Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, and Queen of Shadows. Queen of Shadows has definitely been my favorite of all of them. Oh my god, I don't have the Assassin's Blade in here. I also read Assassin's Blade. I actually read 54 books, not 53. Yeah, Queen of Shadows and also Assassin's Blade actually are my favorites of the ones that I've read. I feel like these books are just getting better and better as her writing develops. At the beginning, things are a little bit shaky. There are characters that are just kind of thrown in there and you're like, what is your purpose? The relationships are okay. I feel like some of them are a little bit underdeveloped and I feel like we could have explored things more, especially I feel like as we're getting into some of the later ones, it's going a little bit more into the romance territory, but I would consider these a lot more fantasy with romance in them. I'm gonna say this right here and right now. I am a Kale apologist. No, I will not be taking questions at this time. You can see the live shows where I discuss them with Christine, Sarah, and Steph over on the Roomies Digest. All the live shows are saved there and you can check them out. I did also start a series. The first one is called The Natural History of Dragons. Second is The Tropic of Serpents. These are by Marie Brennan. I'm really enjoying this series. It's written as if it is like an academic memoir of this woman who studied dragons. It's very much giving Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies vibe, very much on the like cozy, feels as if you are reading like an actual person's memoir. But she writes about studying dragons and is a naturalist and like goes all over the world to study different types of dragons, which up until then people kind of just like let be, and she's like, no, I want to know all about them. And so I really enjoyed the format. I thought it was really fun. In the YA fantasy realm, I read Defy the Night and Defend the Dawn by Bridget Kemmer. I actually really enjoyed this series. I really love the worlds that she creates. I think her strongest suit is world building. And I forgot how much I actually enjoy like YA fantasy specifically. I also did really enjoy the romance in this series. There were a lot of plot twists that I 100% saw coming just because I've read so many of these and it's hard to really catch me off guard at this point. At this point, I am like, yeah, I know what's going to happen pretty much. But I loved seeing the way that it was crafted and it was enjoyable and I'm excited to read the next one. By contemporary, I read Imogen, obviously, by Becky Albertalli. This one, it's so sweet. It's a sweet book. I felt so much for Imogen. I love that it was YA, but also had like kind of a college vibe to it, making it just feel a little bit more mature. And I know so much of like Becky Albertalli like poured herself into this one, and I think you can really see the passion in that. I love her writing and I just feel like she writes such relatable characters. Mythology wise, I read Electra by Jennifer Saint. The writing was good. I hated the character of Electra so much. Maybe it's because I've become such a big like Clytemnestra stan. Electra's relationship with her, defending Agamemnon, which I will never excuse. So I like didn't actually enjoy the book because of that, but like it was well written. I can see from an objective standpoint that like it's well written. And I've loved Jennifer Saint's other books. I couldn't deal with it because I just wanted to shake Electra and be like, your father is the worst. Why do you not see that? Psyche and Eros by Luna McNamara. If you know nothing about the Psyche and Eros myth, if you really don't care about the like accuracy to the myth, it was fun. You know, I felt like it was a different take on the story for sure. I honestly, like, my biggest complaint is that like if you're gonna make it a romance, make it a romance, you know? I wanted more of the romance in it, and I felt like it tried to define itself as a romance, and there just wasn't enough for me. I wanted more. For the dark romances and erotica, or erotic romances, I guess, the first three were all books that I read for book club, for classic literature book club that I host with Sarah, Christine, Mo, Manda, and Jayla. The Pucking Wrong Number by C.A. Jane is a stalker hockey romance. Honestly, I was kind of vibing with it until the end, and then the end just got too much for me. Until then, like, the character was a little unhinged, but like, it was fine. And then it crossed the line and I was like, nope, never mind. Dreadful by Greer Rivers. I didn't hate it. I feel like that's always how I feel about a lot of these ones, is I'm just like, I don't hate it. It's kind of fun in a really dark way. This one has like very Sweeney Todd meets Hamlet vibes, which is a crazy combination set in modern day. My complaint about this one is it involves the Italian mafia, and they wanted you to know that they were Italian. If I read the words Mamma Mia one more time, other than that, it's fun. So dark. I am apparently entering my Sweeney Todd era since I've seen it twice on Broadway now though, so you know, who am I to say? Escape the Island of Eldridge Lost by Amanda Clover. This was a choose your own adventure book, which I'd never read a choose your own adventure, so it was kind of fun. It was insane. I ended up on a totally different path from everyone else. Like, everyone else was making like different choices here and there. They still like were on the same basic path. I went so far left field. Like, honestly, you should definitely watch back that live because things got insane for me. And I don't know how I was the one who ended up there. I mean, I know how I did. I yes-anded my way into everything, and that's the theater kid in me. Finally, in the kind of like dark romance vibe, I read Cruel Seduction by Katie Robert. This is book 5 in the Dark Olympus series, and this one might be my favorite yet. I loved it so much. I feel like the first 2 books weren't as focused on like the plot. It was like kind of just, here's the world and here's the relationship between these 2 characters, and it was very like typical romance. Book 3 and 4 were just so plot heavy, and so like, okay, here's what's going on, here's the conflict that is going to continue through the rest of the books. This one, it's like, okay, we have the conflict established, we know the world, we know all the different players, let's have some fun. And that's very much what this one did. It was a great balance of the like romance and the relationships, especially since it's between 4 characters. It's a open poly knot relationship. And then of course the plot itself. Yeah, I thought this was great. I'm excited for the next one. I think the next one is gonna be a little crazy and I cannot wait for that. Next, I read it's a lit fic. It claims, this is where I'm gonna argue with what it claims to be, because it claims to be like magical realism / like thriller. It's not, and that is The Cloisters by Katie Hayes. I was excited about this because I'm fascinated by the Cloisters. If you don't know, the Cloisters is a sub-museum of the Met here in New York. It is specifically dedicated to medieval art, and it's such a cool museum, and I think so much can be done with it in terms of the magical realism, especially with like where it's located. The area it's located in is like above Washington Heights, like it's in a very like prominent Latinx community, and the fact that like it didn't even use any of that. And then the relationships, they were rough. It took more than half the book to get to the actual mystery. I wanted so much and I loved the idea of it, and it just fell so flat, unfortunately. I was really excited for it too. Graphic novel, I read Ruined. This is a spicy like historical romance graphic novel. Very like Bridgerton vibes. It's fun. I will say the storyline, this one, there's like a couple other graphic novels like this that I've had this experience where it feels like things kind of jump from one thing to the next. And it feels like it should have had like a chapter break, but they don't really do things by chapter. So the storyline gets a little jumbled for me. However, I think the artwork is really beautiful and it is a very fun, fast read. So if you're looking for something to get you to your reading goal, it's a good one. Last but not least, I read a memoir. Crazy, right? And that is Inverse Cowgirl by Alicia Roth Weigel. This one was a book club book for the store that I work at, and it was fine. I always have mixed feelings reviewing like memoirs, but I can like, especially the context of it, because it's like, who am I to judge someone's life? However, like the writing style, I felt, and a lot of us in the book club felt this, where it felt like she was giving us her like CV, and it's like, here's the different things that I've done in my life. And we wanted more of the like emotional connection, and it felt like the story was rushed out. Like she was like, I need to put this out right now. And I felt like there could have been more of an emotional connection explored if maybe it had come out like even a year from now. However, I did learn a lot from it. I thought it was really interesting. It's about a woman who is intersex and talks a lot about like the medical trauma and everything that goes along with that. And so it was a really interesting read. The best way for me to describe the feeling is I just wanted more from it. So there we are. That's the end. That was all 54 books that I read between July and November. That was a lot. And I know I didn't go into super in-depth in all of them. Again, if you want me to talk about them more, just comment down below. With that, if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and hit subscribe. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and until next time, bye.